But back to the Irvin them, just like us, the feds, when you're making all that money, Irvin was making so much money. When you're making all that money, they're really not understanding that. They're really not. Excuse me. I'm sorry. They're really not understanding that people, that young guys from the street with criminal records are making money now with hip hop, and they're making millions. And they don't have to kind of like sell drugs anymore. You know what I'm saying? They're actually making more money than they did when they sold the drugs. So especially Murder Inc.
What'd you get indicted for, though?
So, okay. There was a federal investigation with the Source because there was a point where, we're making a couple of $1 million a month in advertisement. Mm-hmm. So, Boston, there was always, investigating me for a lot of different shit. All right.
Especially being like one of the only people of color coming out of the hip hop community who's making real money.
I mean, but before that, it was the situations, just hood shit, and me coming up, and Boston, the hood of Boston is only 10, 15 miles radius. You know what I'm saying. So it's not like it's too difficult. When you think about it now, to look to get on a nigga, but they was on me. You know what I'm saying. There's stories like Jada and them was telling the story that when we got a situation with them that when they went. Like they told the story when they got locked, when they got taken down to the station.
And the cops were asking them about
cops asked them, how come they didn't get me?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Now, what type of shit is, what type of shit is that? And see, I knew they was doing that because, when I linked up with Jada and the guys from the Rough Riders and we was there to talk about what happened and squash it, that's when they told me. And it was like, man, what did you do? What did you do up there? He said, man, Jake, he called me Ray. He said, Ray, man, they really want to, he said, man, they trying to with you up there. And see, but this has been for years. Like, I'm talking like, if you ever seen The Fourth Trial on HBO's, my man Stutter, and it was about this cop getting killed. Dirty cop, Joe Mulligan. And he come from a family of cops, but dirty, man, dirty. So he got killed. Now, Joe Mulligan used to chase me. The first cop to ever shoot at me was Joe Mulligan, this cop. So it's like, people don't realize how, like, Boston, like, because I've been to a lot of other cities. Like, Boston, since it's racist, we're boxed in on what we could do. And now you're fighting against blocks that are literally like maybe 5 blocks down every day, all day. And it's pump shotguns and revolvers. It wasn't, dudes' whole shit was getting blown off because they was getting hit with pump shotguns, sawed-offs. Like, Boston was a hard town to grow up in. And, then it had its projects too. And all the projects are within 2-3 miles of each other. Bobby Brown's project, New Additions project, not too far. Columbia Point project. You know what I'm saying? With the guys from Detroit, YBI. I mean, Boston, people don't realize how big of a drug city and a hood and gang, there was like probably the first East Coast city to have real gang banging, like no question. Mm-hmm. That, because they had to hire a gang task force. Probably one of the first East Coast cities to hire a gang task force.
Really?
Yeah. And then since then, my name always. So we're starting to get all this money from the Source. And, you know what I'm saying? There was an investigation going on. And it was with the feds. And this was going on for almost like a year and some change where they be sitting downstairs and we, you know what I'm saying? Just like you see on the movies, two guys sitting. George Moore, a white guy that Dave hired to be our accountant. So he's on the business side, his office next to Dave. And he said he got approached over the George Washington Bridge at the Dunkin' Donuts to wear a wire. Mm. You know what I'm saying? So, now mind you, we giving George like $150,000 a year, and I think a car allowance. Mm. Now, the only real conversation me and George come up and have is, hey, George, hey, Ray, we talk Patriots and Jets, because he's from Jersey. And you know what I'm saying? That's it. I don't really know him. So, you know what I'm saying? When I come in, my conversation usually be with Dave. I might go to the other side, see a couple of guys on the other side. But, I never had an office up at the Source the whole time at the Source. I just ain't an office guy. I get, you know what I'm saying? I never really, you know what I'm saying? It would just be a waste. I tried to make it look good, but then I ended up giving it to somebody. But you know what I'm saying? I was hardly there when I did. There was a couch in Dave's office. I just get on there, we smoke blunts, and we talk all night. Dave stayed across the street in Union Square, and man, that's where we made all the decisions. But I never understood why he would wear the wire. When they asked him that, they said he thought it would be fun or thought it would be an adventure. I don't know what it was like. I swear to God, that's what he said.
That's an amazing excuse. I never heard that,
bro. And like, and this is the craziest shit was that he had like a thing right one day, and he's the only one to be wearing them, like a little name badge or something, right?
Okay.
With a number across it, and I'm like, and it didn't dawn on me, right? I'm like, nobody else up here got this thing on this shit. So I'm thinking it's something that all accountants in New York must have. See, I swear to God, I'm thinking like it's a taxi thing. Like, you know what I'm saying? If you're a taxi,
you need the emblem.
I'm thinking maybe
medallion.
Maybe because he didn't have it before, but then he wore it every day, and I'm like, maybe in my mind, this is what I thought it was, that this is something that he got to. This is what all accountants got to wear that.
Right.
He's an accountant. Maybe he's a New York accountant, and that's what that was. Because I did not. That was the fucking wire.
Wow.
So he wore that. The charges was extortion, money laundering, 2 murders in Boston. It was like 3 other charges, and they was already trying to offer me like 25 years.
And they had recordings of you talking about stuff related to this?
They interviewed over 120 people. The feds interviewed over 120 people, maybe 160. Guys would tell me that guys was getting pulled out of the federal prisons in Pennsylvania. And they, you know what I'm saying, the whole source got interviewed. Everybody, a lot of people in Boston got interviewed. The reason now, that shit fell apart. They were spending too much money, and all of a sudden, they couldn't connect no dots. It fell apart, all right? So now the IRS, because there's 2 offices, there's criminal, then there's IRS. Mm-hmm. They're both feds, so the IRS said, fuck it, then we're gonna indict them. And that's where they gave homie, George, the fucking wire, and say, look, we need you to get him to say that he's not gonna do his taxes. We need you to make him say that shit. And now this is a point where this motherfucker, hey Ray, we gotta do your taxes. Like, I don't know no fucking taxes, right? So hey Ray, this is starting to happen often. Now after a while, I'm getting mad. We go on tour. I stopped answering this call, and I was like, Dave, man, what the fuck is the matter with your man? I said, tell him I don't know nothing about no fucking taxes. This is exactly what I'm saying. This is what we hiring him for. It's like, I said, why the he keep asking me about this. And I never thought that he was a rat or anything. So then finally, the last straw, when he was 2 times was on the bus, he called 2 times. Was like, hey, Ray, we got to do your time. I hung up on him. Now, the list that they interview people on the criminal, since I never got indicted, I could never, ever see who that list of people are and what they said, because I didn't get indicted. But George's list I could see from the wire. So every time I would hang up, you would hear this motherfucker be like, he hung up on me again. You could hear, because we would hear all this shit behind it because he was still wearing the wire. So I was like, look at this shit. So I got indicted. They offered me 5 years. You know, taxes. Everybody gets it. You know, Al Capone got hit with taxes. You know what I'm saying? He couldn't. I said, you know what? I'm gonna take it to trial. Fuck it. They offered me 3. The worst I could get was 5. And Coy had just been born, kind of. It would give me more time with her. I knew I was going. I said, let me go do this 5 years. Everybody around me done did this. It's time for me to go do mine. You know what I'm saying? At that point, I ain't did no serious time. You know what I'm saying? So I accepted. I said, fuck it. And I didn't have nobody come down to the federal. The federal court is this brand new court on the water. Every judge has marble floors. You used to see this shit. This shit look crazy, man. So I had an all-white jury, because picking your jury, anybody in here know Almighty RSO? Raise your hand. Source Magazine, raise your hand. Made Men, raise your hand.
So every black person
is out.
Okay, yeah.
There was one Indian, and he was an alternate, right? So I knew I was going, so I hired a lawyer. I had a little bit, we done already lost the source and everything. I had my jewelry left, and my lawyer was gonna charge me like, close to $300,000, you know what I'm saying, for the case. So I sold my jewelry, that big Benzino piece. And Leonard Sands, little Jewish guy out of Miami, Boca Raton, came up there. And man, 5 days the trial went on. George came up and testified. I'm sitting there like, I could not believe it, man. I just could. He was shaking, like I could see him visibly shaking though. Because there was no fucking reason for him to wear a wire on me. There was no, like, what did I do to you? I've never was disrespectful to him. I mean, the whole time, because Dave hired him. He worked with us for years. This isn't like we just hired this dude. He was with us for years. And I just couldn't, and I'm looking at him, and I don't want to try to mean mug, because I know the jury's looking. I'm just like, I damn near was shedding a tear, man, because I'm like, damn, like we was cool. Like you could tell he was out of place up there because it was hip hop, and he was kind of like half Italian, half Jewish or something. And he just seemed like he was out of his place. It seemed like, hey man, where you guys going? Like we would go to the strip club, and he looked like he wanted to come. Come on, George, you come. Nah, man, I can't go. It just looked like some Lifetime movie shit was going on with him and his wife or something, man. Like it was just some weird shit going on, and like it just seemed like he was like a lonely guy or something. Like, you know, here you got the office. The office is popping, music, weed, everybody, you know, bitches is up this crazy. And George is in his office late night, like, how come you ain't went home yet, George? It's like,
right.
And he's sitting there like, I just couldn't understand why and I never had a chance to ask him, of course, after that, because, you know, I can't be next to him or anything, because he was a witness, but.
Because usually when people snitch, you don't agree with it, but you totally get it. Like, yeah, nobody wants to go to prison.
I didn't understand it.
But this dude didn't even have something like that hanging over his head?
Nothing.
What the fuck?
This was crazy, bro. There was no reason. I never ever had an argument with him. But again, I'm looking, now that I look, he's just looking at us, and he's probably just jealous. Just like, look at these young black kids. Look at, and I'm sitting here, and but he's getting paid a lot of money. We gave George was making 6 figures for being our accountant. I don't know what the it was, man, but it's like, you know, for me to get ready to go do some time over that motherfucker, just for them, they said they met him in Dunkin' Donuts, bought him breakfast and everything. Right there, and I know the Dunkin' Donuts he got on, like when you get on George Washington Bridge on 4, it's right there.
And so you beat this, or what happened?
So it was closing arguments. My lawyer giving the closing arguments. He passes out. So the EMTs come, they pick him up.
Your lawyer?
My lawyer, Leonard Sands, because he was like an old guy. So he passes out and shit. So they bring him back to the judge's chambers. He comes out on the gurney with the oxygen, and he's waving to me. I'm like, oh shit. So when I went back to the hotel, because I was living in Miami at the time, and I didn't even tell nobody about this. I didn't want nobody to know. You know what I'm saying? My mother was living at this time. I didn't want. So if it was gonna happen, I was gonna be there by myself. And so I went back, and then it was, next thing you know, he came back and went to Boston City Hospital. It was his heart defibrillator had up or something. Came back, gave closing arguments. 3 hours later, not guilty. I almost passed out. I could not believe it, bro. Like it was like I couldn't believe it. I just grabbed him, man, and I just couldn't believe it, because you don't beat federal cases, man.
Right.
You know, you know what I'm saying? And the way this went was just, and even, you know, one thing I do know is this, because the judge at the end of it, she didn't even understand it. The judge is like, what the is going on? She's looking at the prosecutor like, what was this? The prosecutor couldn't say nothing because he knew it was a part of a bigger investigation. But when that fell apart, then it was like, okay, we got to get him on something, because they didn't spend millions of dollars already investigating me, following me. Like I was getting followed, like I could see them following me in New York when I was living in New York.
Wow.